We're all good and live here. Looking pretty good thus far. We got a fun show today. So, let's have a look-see. Make sure that everyone can see me. Yes. Okay. What's up, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the ToSalem live show. Today is Friday. It's the blackest of Fridays, November 27th, 2020. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. You can find this show on all of those locales. As you can see, we have a whole new layout here. Got people in the chats. Say what's up. Looks like everything's working so far. You should be able to hear some light music going on in the background. If it's too loud, shout at me, and I will turn it down. What's up, Laura? What's up, Tass? Howdy, howdy, howdy. Packed show today. I'm going to just jump right on in. Let's get this party going. The first thing I want to do today is the new subscriber shout out. A bunch of new people popping around. Let's see, we got Mad Magus. Let's have a look at Mad Magus. Looks like Mad Magus is not currently making any stuff, but subscribe to Mr. Joe Rogan, Gordon White, big fan of Gordon myself, me, a bunch of other people, John Ballantree. You know, I've heard of him, but I haven't really done a deep dive. You'll have to let me know what's up with that, Mad Me. We got Melissa Ray Tarot coming in, new sub. What's Melissa up to? Let's see, looks like she's subbed to a bunch of cool magic-y people. Heartside Tarot, I know. They're really good. Gordon, again. Me and Gordon are just going to have to talk at some point. Rune Soup is, I would say, seminal in my life. So, yeah, I would love to talk to him. We got Venetian Metalhead, which is a very cool screen name. Looks like they're making they made a Call of Duty Black Ops video a few years back. We got Dee Dee Jones, we got Emma Boys, we got Shauna. What's up, Shauna? Grow and glow, feed your face and your soul. I like that. 395 subscribers with not any content. Shauna is seeming a little bit sketchy to me. We got Father Moonraven. What's up, Father Moonraven? Lots of cool playlists it looks like here. Let's see, who else we got here? We got Northbert Rivers. What's up, Northbert? Northbert. You and I might be people after similar dispositions. I'm seeing some Skyrim music. I'm seeing some crafty stuff, some stained glass work, woodworking playlists that you've made here. Fake It Till. It looks like someone making a whiskey barrel. Very cool stuff, man. Intentional crafting is something I'm getting more and more interested in. We're about to do some stuff on the YouTube. What's up, Carol? How's it going? We are about to do some stuff on the YouTube with some intentional crafting, so keep a look on the channel here, Northbert. All right, those are our new subs. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show on this blackest of Fridays. Let's start out today with a little toast. A little toast to you. I'm going non-alcoholic today because it's one of those days where I need the caffeine. So here is a little bit of a sip of caffeine to you, to all the weirdos, to Salem. Let's get weird, witches. Gulp. I hope you could hear that. Did you get some good ASMR out of that? Let me do it again. Half my viewers just left. That's all right. Alrighty, so first up today, let's see, we got from around the web. There is a really cool article posted that I want to point your attention to. I read this a few times this week and am somewhat obsessed with it. The title is written by Ash. That's all we've got, is that the person's name is Ash, and it is on Pathos. If you don't know Pathos is kind of one of these collective sites where there's a bunch of religious stuff from all kinds of different faiths and beliefs, and you know they're kind of a one size fits all spirituality site. But they also happen to be a place where a lot of contemporary, oh, it's Ashley Carroll, it looks like is the author here, a lot of contemporary pagan authors post stuff. And so you can, every once in a while, you come across some interesting stuff on Patheos. I like this, and I want to add some thoughts to it. Title of this article is Gardnerian Wicca, Outdated and Debunked, question mark. And basically they start off with proposing a question that they were asked on Instagram, which is, here's the question: what would you say if someone told you that Gardnerian craft is in part based on almost outdated and debunked academic books on witchcraft? Interesting topic, right? Basically what this person is asking is, hey, a lot of the stuff that Gerald Gardner put into the formation of Gardnerian Wicca, we have now moved on past as a scientific culture and just culturally generally. And so they give this short answer, which I think is interesting. It says, just because the text is outdated does not render it worthless. And they're going to come back to this idea, Ashley, is throughout the course of this article. But then we go into a little bit of a breakdown of some of the pieces that Ash finds problematic. And here she mentions Aleister Crowley, the OTO, the Golden Dawn, the White Goddess in 48 by Robert Graves, the Witch Cult in Western Europe in 1921 by Margaret Murray, the Golden Bough by James Frazer, 1922, Aradia or Gospel of Witches, 1899 by Charles C. Leland, and the Key of Solomon, the mid-17th century. Okay, so a lot of the stuff in those books, and this author does note this, does not really have historical accuracy much anymore. So we kind of venture off into this territory of, just because something is not historically true, quote unquote, that doesn't mean it's not valuable. I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm so curious to hear what you think if you're in the chat. I just recently recorded a podcast episode. By the way, podcast came out today with Travis McHenry. Fantastic. Go listen to it. If you're into the occult at all, check him out. He is one of the most free-minded occultists I've ever come across. The dude is totally an original thinker. So if nothing else, it's worth checking him out just for that. But it also happens to be a fascinating conversation on all kinds of stuff. Masculinity in the occult, the role of just Western esotericism in Western civilization, how those things are manifesting nowadays. He's also a former naval intelligence specialist, so he has this really interesting insights into what it's like to be a very manly man, unlike yours truly, a very manly man in the occult space. Just fascinating chat. Check that out. It came out this morning. It's here on the channel. Getting back to this article, this is reminding me of actually a podcast that's upcoming. I won't say with who, but I've got somebody coming up on the podcast. We already recorded and everything. It's going to be out in the next few weeks. And we have this exact conversation, although not necessarily just through the Wiccan lens. Here's the question that I posed to you in the chat. And here's the question that I think the author of this article is kind of getting at. Oh, there you go. Follow Ash there, the Gardnerian librarian, if you want more from Miss Ash. Here's the question. Does it matter that the foundational texts of Western esotericism generally, I would go even beyond Wicca, are rooted in history that is not completely accurate? The opinion that this author comes up with in this article is not so much, because you can still derive value from something even though it's not historically accurate. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be historically accurate to be valuable, A. And then B, if you're talking about Wicca particularly, you're not really, this is the author's point, not mine, but you're not really talking about something that is that old of a tradition to begin with. This is an interesting thing. I'm curious what Wiccans would say to this. I'm not a Wiccan, but I'm curious. I hear this a lot from Wiccans. On the one hand, you have this, hey, our tradition isn't that old. You know, we're not claiming to have any ancient wisdom. But then on the other, you see them whipping out ancient wisdom a whole lot. I know that's a gross generalization, but this author kind of does it. At least if I can find the exact moment. This author literally does it in like 2 paragraphs. Let's find it. We're going to find it. It's not a long article. It shouldn't be that hard to find. Somewhere in here. Talking about the value of practices. Okay. Most initiates try very hard to recommend texts that are well respected and historically accurate. It's also worth noting that people should read the outdated and debunked authors so that they're more well-rounded in their knowledge. Old information is not bad information. The age of an information source really only matters when facts are involved. So that's in this paragraph. And then literally in the paragraph preceding it, the tradition does not claim to be ancient or correct. We claim nothing except spiritual lineage to Gerald Gardner. Gardnerian practices don't need to be validated by outsiders for us initiates to continue working them, as they clearly are still of great value to us. So you have in this paragraph, you have like, hey, we're going to still value it even if it's not old. And then the next paragraph, you should look at, actually look what I'm highlighting, old information. I feel this tension a lot in neo-paganism broadly. But I just think this is a fascinating article because I get the point, the point being that, look, this stuff doesn't have to be historically accurate for it to be worthwhile. And it doesn't have to be historically accurate for it to be, I guess, capital T true. But it does need to be historically accurate to be lowercase t true. Don't it? At least parts of it need to be. This is probably a larger conversation about spirituality and religion broadly, but I think just distilled through this lens of Wicca, it's a very quick introduction to this argument that I found absolutely fascinating. I'll put a link down in the description to check out this article by Ash. So Ash, some love. It is well written. Big old fan of it. Next up on the weekly news, I'm just going to geek out for a sec. Apologies if nobody gets this besides me. I have been screaming the praises of this movie, Blair Witch Project 2, from the roof of wherever I happen to live since I was a boy. It just turned, the original came out in 99, and this one, I guess, came out 2 years later. Is that right? Or 1 year later? I think it just turned 20. Yeah. I think the second one just turned 20. Okay, here's the thing. Most people hate this movie. If you've seen Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, I'm not talking about the remake. I'm talking about the sequel to the first Blair Witch. Here's what's up. This is a very long interview, so we're not going to get all the way through it. Like, look at this. I don't know how many words that is. Like 10,000 or something. But let me give you just a brief overview of what happened with Blair Witch 2 and why this article is worth a read. So everybody knows Blair Witch 1. A lot of people these days know Blair Witch, the expanded universe, meaning the video game, I think now it's a Hunt a Killer is doing a Blair Witch series. They're starting to get more universe building in the Blair Witch universe, which I'm very happy about because it's a fascinating universe from my perspective. I played a little bit of the Blair Witch game here on the channel. If you want to check out the live videos, you can see how that game starts and just get like the first few hours of it. Okay, so let's go back in time. Back in time. Timey-wimey machine to 1999. I am in 1999, in my early teens. We live out in the boonies in Tennessee in this little trailer that's on a piece of land that has a ranch on it. We're way out there, man. Like, way out there. Buses don't run out there. Have to drive to school every day. On well water. Every time there's a storm, the electricity goes out. Like, out there. As out there as you could be in the late 90s, early 2000s in America. That's probably not true. In the Southeast, I guess. Anyway, this movie comes out, Blair Witch Project, and I'm dying to see it. Dying to see it. I don't get to see it in theaters. I have to wait till it comes out to the Blockbuster. I get it from the Blockbuster. I take it back to my little abode where my family lives, and I watch it alone. I don't remember what was going on, but my mom isn't there. My sisters both aren't there. I'm watching this movie, and literally the climax of the film, spoiler alert if you've not seen Blair Witch 1, the climax of the film, I would say, is the whole movie is ratcheting up this tension. It's the first found footage mega hit of the digital age. A little pre-digital, but anyway. The whole film is ratcheting up this tension where people of this three-person crew that are hunting down a witch in the woods in Maryland, they're getting picked off. One of them disappears, and that's the kickoff between, I would say, Act 1 and 2. And then the Act 2 to 3 transition of this film is they think that they find this guy in a house, or they think that he might be in this house that they stumble upon in the middle of the woods. So the two remaining cast members go into this house, and very quickly our protagonist gets separated from her other friend, leaving just her roaming through this house. She gets down to the basement of the house, and one of the 12 iconic scenes from Blair Witch 1, we'll just pull it up just for anybody who has not seen it, or maybe has only seen the remakes or whatever. Let's see, Blair Witch Project corner. That should get us there. One of the iconic scenes is this one right here, where she goes down to the basement, and keep in mind this is all old crappy handheld shaky footage stuff. She goes down to the basement and she sees her friend Mikey, who has disappeared some minutes before, facing into the corner, not moving, not making any suggestion that he recognizes that she's there. It's terrifying. Right at this moment, as I'm watching the movie, the power in the entire trailer goes out. And I'm in the middle of the woods. In Tennessee. There's no one around me for a long time. It's the middle of the night. So I stumble into the kitchen and I get a butcher's knife, and I'm just like, God, this is it. I'm done. It's over. Luckily, the power came back on, and all that happened was I was inhabited by a demon who I have to talk to for a few hours every day, but it's fine. A few years after this comes out, Blair Witch 1 is a huge smash success. Everybody loves it. The cast is on The Tonight Show. Everybody's clamoring for the team that made it to make a follow-up. So they do. And what we get, you've seen these visuals from Blair 1, which is shaky, handheld, desaturated, black and white, kind of crappy, grainy footage. What we get in for the follow-up is not that. What we get is this, where it is highly saturated, highly contrasted, not found footage. It is a studio picture with studio actors and studio shots and a studio script. And most people absolutely loathe it. I was one of the few, I think, even then. I only have one other friend that I talked to about it that liked it. So back then, in my admittedly very small sample size, I was one of very few people I knew anyway that liked it. In the years since, I have been like, Blair Witch 2 is a great movie, and no one's on that team. But it turns out, here on the 20th anniversary, if you read this article here that I'll include from comicbook.com, I am not alone in my adoration of Blair Witch Project 2. What's interesting about Blair Witch Project 2 is that it, in a lot of ways, foresaw what was going to happen in the media generally, not just horror media, but media period. The whole plot of Blair Witch 2 is that there's these people who are, filmmakers who've heard about this legend of what happens, the events that happen in Blair Witch 1. So they go out to the woods to try and stimulate, some sort of paranormal thing for the purposes of popularity, basically. This is all back when it was made. That's not a tremendously relevant thing necessarily. Now, that's a huge part of our culture. This article, which is a long interview with the main creative team behind Blair Witch 2, is talking about how this was so prescient, how it understood stuff that was going to come. Some of these questions, look at these questions that comicbook.com asks. Once we get past the whole people didn't like it when it came out thing, we get into these questions of there are definitely people who, even with the issues mandated by the studio, a lot of what went wrong about Blair Witch 2 is studio involvement. Shocker. can see the message that you're trying to explore. You use the word prescient, and that's how it feels. I was reminded of RoboCop and Starship Troopers, how at the time they were considered these big sci-fi ideas about authoritarianism or the military-industrial complex, and how those themes were missed by many audiences when they were initially released, only for those sci-fi themes to become a reality. When you're exploring these themes, were you doing so because you noticed the trend and thought it made an interesting story, or did you think you were crafting a cautionary tale? Now, I'm going to have to spoil Blair Witch 2 a little bit for this to make sense. Basically, if I'm remembering, I haven't seen the movie in quite a while, but if I remember correctly, everyone goes completely insane in this movie, and there's a lot of there's some paranormal stuff, but there's a difference between, so the studio cut, it's like that the witch has inhabited one of these people and is using them to kill a bunch of innocent people. The initial script, though, and what the intention was of the filmmakers is quite different. It was talking about just the insanity of being out there with people and cameras, period, and what that could lead you to do for getting the shot. There are all these inserts of violence. I thought this is fascinating. The studio demanded that they put more violence into the movie. If you take the violence out, which I've kind of considered, I wonder if anybody's done, somebody in chat, if you know if this exists, if there's a Blair Witch 2 cut that is more like a fan cut, that is more in line with what the filmmakers were very vocally trying to do and less with what the studio involvement was, like ones that rework it and take out the violent stuff, because it seems like they were trying to make a much more cerebral, much more pop culture critical film. And I'm actually I've been wanting to rewatch this movie for a while. I think I'm going to do it this week because this is making me want to rewatch it, A, and then B, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, if there's another found footage movie of this era, the early found footage era, let's say pre-Paranormal Activity, that is at least attempting to be as critical of culture as Blair Witch 2. I'd be curious if anybody knows of one, and for that reason alone, this is worth another look. So I was fascinated by this article. Made me want to go rewatch this movie. Fantastic addition to your Black Friday. If you're looking for something to do, go watch Blair Witch 2. Take out all the crappy parts and let me know what you think about it. Try and find a fan cut, I suppose, and see what's up with Blair Witch 2. Check it out, people. All right, next up, this is a new segment. Last week I asked everybody if you want to do a Q&A section to send in questions to Joel at ToSalem.com. That's JOEL at TOSALEM.com. And I got a bunch of questions. What I did not ask last week was if everybody was cool with me revealing your names as a part of asking these questions. So I'm just going to do first names this week. When you submit questions in the future, just put in there if you want me to say who you are, and then you can always submit questions here in the chat too. So I just pulled out a few that were submitted last week. And the first one is from Rory, and he says, in your ritual magic video, you talk about identity as if it's something that can be played with willy-nilly. It's a fun phrase, Rory. What makes you think something as solid as identity is that nimble? Good question. Well, for me personally, I would say a lot of it is probably performance. I've done a lot of performance in my life, and this right now is performative. Go check out Lindsay Ellis's video, YouTube Manufacturing Authenticity, if you want a deeper dive into why and how this is performative. But it definitely is performative. So I've done a lot of performance in my life. I think that in part leads me to suspect deeply that identity is way more malleable than we give it credit for. And I think on top of that too, just the magical worldview, the infiltration of the magical worldview in my own consciousness over these last few years leads me to not believe, but to know, as much as I can know anything, that identity is malleable. and that most of magical thought is about that, actually. That it's about the malleable nature of the identity, bringing in external influences to help you change your own identity, change the things you don't like about yourself, speak to the parts in yourself that you have trouble speaking to on a daily basis. So it's probably those two. It's probably a lot of performance and a lot of reading and thinking, and now starting to practice some ritual magic that leads me to believe that identity is to use your word, nimble. I think it is tremendously nimble. I think there's a lot of stuff in culture in the West that is so present because, look at me dancing on eggshells here, is so present, not to be conspiratorial, but specifically because it reinforces a narrative that identity isn't nimble. A lot of it's not in the interests of the powerful, let's say, for us to believe that we can just change parts of ourselves at will and that we can just decide to be an entirely new person whenever we want. It's in the interest of the powerful for us to believe that, as long as we buy whatever it is that they're selling. But magic is subversive in the way that it always has been subversive, because it says you don't need anything. You don't need anything to speak to parts of yourself. You just have to understand a process and then engage with that process. So it's those two things, a lot of performance and a lot of thinking about the magical worldview that leads me to believe that identity is very malleable. That having been said, I am concluding just by the nature of the way you phrase this question that you're asking a deeper question too about stuff like nature versus nurture, and how deeply our childhood influences are woven into us, how much of our identity is solid and static and can't be changed no matter what we do. I would say that that's probably true. And then there's also the realm of the unconscious, which is not just to some degree unchangeable, but unknowable. Those kind of things, I don't think magic is directly speaking to wanting to alter. I think magic is speaking to want to experience, which is different. Wanting to experience the subconscious mind, wanting to float around in these uncharted realms and self is different than wanting to go and change stuff. So it's a different use of magical thought, let's say. But even that stuff, I think, is probably changeable. It just takes longer. And maybe it's not directly changeable. Maybe it's like you have to float around and do a bunch of other stuff in order to change it. But yeah, I tend to think that a lot of identity is very nimble, to use your word. All right, Kat. Kat asks a much simpler question. What's your favorite restaurant in Salem? Simple, but not easy. It depends. I don't have an out and out favorite. I have a few that I go back to regularly. The combo of the pizza place and Gulu Gulu Cafe next to each other is probably the place I go to the most. Because it's centrally located, because I like chilling at Gulu Gulu, because I like the pizza next door, it's owned by the same people. I like the bathrooms, which is a big deal in Salem, to find good bathrooms. There's good bathrooms at that place. So that's probably the place I go the most. Favorite restaurant outside of that? I mean, some of the best meals I've ever had were at Terrain. Is that the name of that place? I think it is. My brain's not really working today. I'm not sure. Before I give a shout out. No, that's totally not the name of that place. Oh, what is that place? Someone in chat, tell me. It's in Salem. Obviously, it's kind of on the... I'm going to find it. Here we go. I'm nearly there. Nearly there. God, my brain is just not working. Ledger. There we go. Ledger. Thank you. Ledger is probably the place I've had the best meals in Salem, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite. It's a little pricey. So yeah, I would say the combo of Gulu Gulu and Pizza Place next door and then Ledger are probably, when you put all those together, my favorite. Okay, last question here we have from Heather. Wow, that's a good question, Heather. I hope you check this out, this stream. She says, I love Salem, and I love your channel. Thank you. No one else is really doing the kinds of things you're doing with the videos and podcasts and stuff like that. Not sure I agree with that, but I appreciate it. My friends and I want to do a really out there podcast together, but we're scared of what people, and then in parentheses she's put, our other friends, parents, church people will think. Do you worry about stuff like that? Stay weird. You stay weird, Heather. Yeah, it's the short answer. I worry about stuff like that constantly. The ritual magic video I showed to probably like 5 people I'm really close to, my mom, my wife, friends, before I released it, because of that, because I was worried. I show stuff that I just asked someone today to if they would look over a script for an upcoming ToSalem video, because I'm worried. I kind of gather by the tone of the way you asked this question, let me know if I'm wrong, Heather. I kind of gather by the tone that you're younger, and you seem to be in some kind of religious community, because you mentioned your church here and your parents. When you're younger, it's especially hard, I think, because you're kind of still trying to figure out a lot of who you are. And you maybe, if you're like me, you're kind of trying to figure that out through doing stuff like podcasts, like plays, like movies. That's kind of the young person that I was doing a lot of this stuff. And you're maybe scared to reveal too much of what you're into, because if you do, and then someone judges you for it, it's like a part of you knows that you're going to have to censor yourself to some degree for a while, and that's going to be painful. I would just say, Heather, something I'm learning lately, maybe too lately, like I kind of wish I learned it when I was younger. Something I'm learning lately is there are people for you, no matter what kind of person you are. There are people for you. And if they're not directly around you, the only way that you can find them and that they can find you is that you have to start sharing yourself. And if that's through this like weird podcast with your friends, which already you've got some friends who want to do a weird podcast with you, which is awesome. If that's through like, a podcast with your friends, if that's through commenting on YouTube videos, sharing stuff, if that's through making TikTok, music videos or whatever. In my experience, the only way that you find your people, your tribe, is by kind of going out on that limb yourself. And it's scary, and it's hard, and you have no way of knowing the risks you're taking when you do that, or what's going to happen. But I can tell you from very recent personal experience that it's much better to be surrounded by 10 people who you really get and really get you than it is to be surrounded by 100,000 people who are in love with something that you aren't in love with, like in terms of your identity. That latter is so painful in the long run, and it's just not worth it, So I would say yes. The answer to your question is yeah, I get scared. I worry about it all of the time. I worry about everything I'm doing on this channel. I worry about the podcast. I worry about the interviews. I worry about making the sorts of stuff I want to make. I worry about, is stuff that I'm making any good? I mean, I'm the most neurotic creator you've ever met. I'm constantly worrying. But the thing that I try not to let happen, the thing I would advise you to try not to let happen, Heather, is I try not to let it stop me. I think that's when your growth stops. Is when you stop making the stuff you want to make and doing the things you want to do and talking to people you want to talk to. Growth is the name of the game. Transformation is the name of the game. Moving up through the stages of your life is the name of the game, and doing it as honestly and cleanly as you can. And the only way that really stops is if you stop doing the things that you want to do and doing them with the people you want to do them with. So I don't know what other thing to say to you other than have courage, make it, and try and focus on the making of it more than what might happen after. And when you do get to after and you do start releasing, and this is tying into an update, which we're going to get to the update section next. So just put this in your mind, Heather, and remember this. I'm going to talk about this more in a second. When you do get to the point where you're putting stuff out in the world, you need to surround yourself. Ooh, getting teary. You need to surround yourself with a few people whose opinions you really, really trust and who you know are going to be kind toward you and your work. And everybody else, you need to shut out. All the comments on the YouTube, on your podcast page, whatever the thing is that you set up, you shut it out for like a week. You give yourself time to not focus on it at all. And you just listen to that core group, your friends, your family, whoever it is. You just listen to them because they will build you up and they will give you the strength to endure whatever the rest of those comments are. Because good comments are hard too, believe it or not. Heather, when someone says your work is really good, that's hard because it's like, okay, so what do I do now? There's nowhere to go with that comment. So it's all hard. All feedback is tough. So I would just say, keep going, have courage, do it, just do it. But do it for the project's sake and for your sake and for your friends' sake. Don't do it because you think you're going to get any attention or anything out of that, because that'll just end up hurting you in the end. Even if you're right, it'll end up hurting you. So yeah, email me anytime, Heather. I would love to spotlight your work. I would love to give you what little platform I have. It sounds like you're a really, really cool person. All right, that is the Q&A section. Lisa says, very true. Not everyone is going to agree or like your work, but staying true to you is the most important. Yeah, I totally agree. I've gone through this, Heather. You can go back on this channel and you can see it happening. And I encourage you to do that. I really do. You're very complimentary in this email you sent to me about what I'm currently doing on the channel. I would encourage you to go back and watch some of the old stuff. I've tried to please people on this channel, and I've regretted some of that. And if you can avoid that, and the way to avoid that is exactly what Lisa's saying. Just do what you want to do. Stay true to you. Stay true to you. And stay true to the people whose opinions you deeply value. It may not get you far materially, but that's not really the point. The point is it's gonna keep you healthy. You know, it's gonna keep your head right. Who is that? What is that? Somebody put this in chat. What is that quote about? That the wise thing to do is to keep disorder from occurring. By the time disorder has occurred, it's like trying to fix a sinking ship as it's sinking or something like that. Somebody find that quote and put it in chat. But it's very true. When you're a creative person in public, the name of the game is maintaining your state of mind and maintaining that to be a healthy, productive state of mind. That is the most important thing. From that, the work comes. So you don't want to set yourself up to have anything but that if you can help it. So it sounds like you've got a great group around you who wants to do this. I mean, your wording is you want to do a, want to do a really out there podcast together. I love out there podcasts. I have no idea what you mean by that, but please send it to me when you're done, and I want to hear it. Yeah, surround yourself with those people. Keep your head down. You're going to be great, Heather. I can't wait to see what you do. Alrighty. ToSalem updates. I need little splash pages so everybody knows what's going on. ToSalem updates. Well, first of all, Travis McHenry podcast came out this morning on the old channel. Pull it up here so you guys can see it whilst I am talking about it. Burp. There it is. I'll mute it. This is Travis McHenry. That is the devil made flesh. Travis is a really, really, really cool guy. Highly recommend you guys have a look at him. Some of the things we talk about in this episode. So he's crazy in that when you go to his website, look at this. Look at all these categories. And I talk about this in the show here. Man, 254,000 ads blocked. Pfft. Suck it, internet. Oh, come on, load, dude. Well, when you go to his website, he has like 6. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks so much on the layout comment. He has like 6. Oh no, his site's down. Did we crash it with our 10 people? He has like 8 categories of things that he does, distinct things that he does on his website. It's like CEO, occultist, environmentalist, all kinds of cool stuff. Some of the stuff we talk about in this episode, his film history, his directing history. He made the occult tarot, which is somewhere nearby, although I can't seem to locate it. Oh, here it is. This deck right here. There's some of it. He made the occult tarot. He has also written books on things like Bigfoot and aliens. We talk about that kind of stuff. He no longer believes in Bigfoot after investigating it deeply. Don't come after me, come after Travis. We talk about what he lives. He was born and raised on the East Coast, or in Pennsylvania, but he now is on the West Coast in Vegas, and he was in LA for a long time. So we talk about the difference between East Coast and West Coast magic, as he has experienced it, what the occult and artistry have in common. He is a kind of world traveling guy. He's actually the ruler of his own country. So we talk a little bit of global stuff. Chinese government and spirituality as perhaps something we should be looking to here in the West as a potential way out of some of the issues that we're dealing with. We talk about his nation, which is in Antarctica. It's called West Arctica. We talk about what it's like to run a country. It's a very bounce around in the time codes here in the description. Definitely check out Travis McHenry. He is worth a gander. So we released that this morning elsewhere in ToSalem world. The audio series has a name. It has a name, and it is going into casting next week. That's I need a celebration noise. Yay! That's where we're at with the audio series. I have no idea how long it's going to be, none whatsoever, but it is staying true to the audio feature, which was called Salem's Ghost, a Salem Witch Trials paranormal audio drama. This one is called Salem's Ghosts, The Lynn Lady. And that's all I'll say about it. The Lynn Lady. Salem experts watching the stream, you're going to have to do what you want with that. It is true crimey, it is paranormally, it is romantic. Unlike Salem's Ghost, it is very character-centered, and we're currently looking at a mid-January release. So, stay tuned for that. We're doing a big release for this thing, I think. Like, we're going to make it like a party. So, drop me a line at Joel at ToSalem. I think we're probably going to do like a handful of exclusive tickets. It's going to be like a paid release, so because this thing's like a big production. So if you want some free tickets, drop me a line, joel@tosalem.com, and I will make sure you get one of the comps. So that's in progress. I'm writing until my fingers fall off at the moment, but the story is all worked out. After many iterations and many journal pages and several drafts, the story's there, the characters there, the casting breakdown is put together. Everything's good to go into casting, which is what we're going to start doing next week. So next week, we should have a cast or a tentative cast or some people cast, and maybe I can start sharing a little bit of who is in this thing with you all. And then obviously as we get closer to it, you'll find out more about the story as well. Very different from the feature, not set during the Salem Witch Trials at all. Alrighty, so that's what's up with the audio series. We've got a big new video project in the works. If you know Philosophy Tube or ContraPoints, you are going to dig what I'm currently working on. I won't talk too much about it. I know what it is, but I'm not going to say it quite yet. But it's unlike anything I've ever done here. It's very involved. The new ToSalem writer Ellie is a big part of it, and we are in the very early stages of putting it together. I'm hoping to release it in December. We'll see. So that's coming up. It's going to blow your mind, I hope, if I don't fail miserably at it. It's very cool. Over the next few weeks, we are releasing 3, is the final number, 3 crafting videos here on the channel. These are intentional crafting videos, 3 separate projects that you are meant to follow along with that have to do with putting your intention and good vibes into a craft item that you are making and putting up in around your home, an art project. Cool thing to do from a witch perspective, cool thing to do from a magic perspective, cool thing to do from a crafting perspective, cool thing to do. I think all of these are probably ones you could even do with like kids if you wanted to. You need supervision, obviously, for 1, maybe 2 of them, but it's a really cool new way to think about magic. I like it a lot because I don't know if you guys are like me, but if I like paint something and it's intentional and I put all kinds of like good thoughts and vibes into it and then I put it on the wall, every time I see that thing, I'm uplifted by the messaging that I put into it, which is just sort of, common human knowledge. But if that thing happens to be a very deep, personal thing for you, if you're like really seeking strength or help or guidance or whatever, and you put all of that intention into a craft item that you then display somewhere in your home, you can see how the positivity of that would just like, pour all over your day. So we're going to be doing 3 of those throughout December, actually doing test shoots this weekend on that. So keep a look. I don't know the dates on that yet. Probably spread out through December though. So there'll be one like early December, one in mid, and one in late December. Those are in progress. Oh, this is cool. Okay, this is a me thing. So apology. It is very living sigilly, isn't it? What a good comment, Lisa. God. Lisa's Cauldron, everybody. Go subscribe to her. Do it. I don't even know. Yeah, just go do it. Don't even think about it. This is a personal note. My movie, like me, Joel, not ToSalem guy, that I've been working on for the last, period, for about a year and a half, year and 2/3, is done. And I put in the final cut over the past week. I've now showed it to a few people that were in it, a few people who weren't in it. I've gotten some reviews, and everything is insanely positive. So I want to take a sec here. The film is called Sarah and the Animals. I wrote it and directed it. And let's see if we can find, let me see if I can find the trailer and show it here on the screen. It's real quick, so we'll just watch the trailer together. There it is. The trailer came out, so the movie was originally going to come out this past spring, but I don't know if you guys heard, there was a great unpleasantness, to steal Ron Martin's term, a great unpleasantness that swept through the land and delayed stuff. Also, it was just really hard for me to finish it, if I'm honest. This has been really, really, really hard to finish. But I finally finished it, and here's the trailer that we released back in January. Let me pause the music here. Somebody in the stream let me know that you can hear this. Okay, hold up. Can you hear it? Oh no, you can't hear it, so you can just see it. Boo! Let's see here. Let's see if I can fix it. One sec. Oh, it's very low, so you can hear it, but it's low. Let me crank up the volume. I will do this. My desktop audio thing isn't working for some reason. Here, I'll just play it through my speakers. Apologies, just the audio isn't like great. All right, here we go.
I know you're not gonna pick up. Like, I guess part of me still thinks you're going to. And I have a disconnect.
Oh, let's do this. Look what I can do. Wow! He transitioned. Okay, here we go.
I know you're not gonna pick up. Like, I guess part of me still thinks you're going to. And I haven't disconnected the line yet, so. Part of me thinks that if I just keep calling, eventually, I don't know.
Yay! That's my movie. It's done. It finished this week. We're doing a private screening for it. If you're interested in seeing it, let me know. And then it is off to the festival. So that's a little bit of a personal update. That thing took me a year and 2/3 to do. There's a cast of like 8 people in it. There's a cast of like 8 people in it. The finished film is 25 minutes long. It's not even that long, but it took forever to finish. I was terrified to finish it. The basic storyline of Sarah and the Animals is that it's a sort of coming of age drama with a horrific third act. I would say it's horrific. About a girl who's living at home and hasn't really been able to recover from a trauma that happens before the movie starts. In so doing, she's like being pressured by her dad to get out in the world and get a job, which she fails miserably at. She comes across this group of people who are doing an ayahuasca-esque hallucinogenic drug on a beach dressed as animals, and she decides to take part. And from there, all sorts of dramatic stuff ensues. So that's the basic conceit of the movie. Thank you guys so much for the love. Very, very, very big labor of love for me. It was a really big week for me. I actually went out with the person that you saw there who plays the lead, Sarah. She and I went out to where we shot it yesterday and kind of said goodbye, start parts of it, said goodbye, that beach that you saw. We said goodbye to the film. It was a very emotional experience. Someday, if somebody's interested, submit a Q&A and I'll talk about a Q&A question. It was a long journey to transition from what I was doing before making that movie to making it, and also the stuff that I'm kind of doing now, even on the channel. So if you're interested in that, I'll tell you all about it. But very, very emotional stuff. Cool wrap up to finish that this week, and it's going to be out in the world in the very near future. So that brings us to our final segment, which is, I'm just going to call this thing the deep dive. On our first live stream, which was last week, we sort of had this one topic that got broached, and it was interesting. And I got a few questions about it through email, and I thought that we should just do a deep dive on it. Last week, if you watched the stream, you know that we watched the trailer to the David Bowie biopic, Stardust. And in that trailer, I as we were watching it, I expressed no small amount of disappointment in the way that they were characterizing what David Bowie was trying to do in the lead up to becoming Ziggy Stardust, and the lead up to the most famous era of his career. And I basically just kind of said, without explaining, that this whole thing that they're presenting in the trailer, which is that he became this character to try and get famous, was way missing the point and not true, and that it was actually way deeper than that. So I got a few questions about that, and I went and I dug around and I found this. This is an excerpt from a book that I've not read, but I'm gonna. The book is Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll. This is used with permission here on Medium. So, Peter, what's his last name? Bebergal. This is a piece from this book. God, look at that. God. Ugh, this picture. Good Lord. I just can't with David Bowie. Ugh. Here, let me make this full screen so we can all appreciate him together. Just need a moment of silence, man. Nobody like him. Okay. A little somberness there. I forget all the time that he's gone. I really do, because he's still so present to me. I forget it all the time, and every once in a while it just hits me. It's like, God, he's not doing stuff anymore. But I'm going to live my whole life pouring through what he did, because it was that dense. Basically, this whole article, which is taken from this book, Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll, is about Bowie. And it's about, here's a good quote, the top highlight is in the history of rock, there is likely no truer magician than Bowie, as he has come to personify how magic works. This whole article is about talking about, we're getting into just starting it by just talking about what it is that Bowie actually did. And I love this. I think this is where they are comparing him to other people like, I think it was Rolling Stones dude. Somewhere here they did that. Rolling Stones dude. Don't come after me. My brain's not working. Bowie used glamour, both in the fashion and magical senses, to convert rock audiences into accepting a bisexual and binary sense of self. This was not simply the androgynous sexuality of someone like Jagger. There we go. Bowie's sexual self is a method of transgression. Think about this. Bowie's sexual self is a method of transgression, illuminating something universally and perhaps subconsciously human. Ooh, you feel that? That's a good feeling, isn't it? Bowie's sexual self is a method of transgression, illuminating something universally and perhaps subconsciously human. Bowie was a cultural seer, the prophet in ancient Greek myths, walking both female and male, comparisons to Dionysus. I love this. Bowie outfitted his transgender themes with what was cutting-edge fashion at the time. Aliens, magic, and mysticism, but his tones were somewhat bleak. And then we kind of get into early career and drug use, which, I don't know. What do you guys think about the drug era of Bowie? I wonder if I know he talked about it a lot later in his career, and kind of seemed that he thought he had gone too far. But this whole article, I'll put it in the description here. If you are interested in diving deeper into what I meant last week by that what Bowie was trying to do was way deeper. Lisa, like the emergence of both sides, opposite sides to one, I only know a little about him. Yeah. Okay, so let's read this paragraph up here, which speaks to it. You'll dig this, Lisa. Brian Eno, too. I think they mentioned Brian Eno somewhere here. He's someone else to look at who did this similar stuff. Okay, here we go. Bowie's first album. Okay, here we go. Once he recast himself as Cosmonaut with his second outing, Space Oddity, in '69, Bowie began his ever-shifting transmutations, a living alchemical elixir, becoming more potent and dangerous with every experiment. Music critics agreed that Space Oddity was unique. Cool. And here is the esoteric backing that we're talking about, Lisa. Bowie was a cultural seer, not unlike, I'm going to mispronounce all this, Tiresias, the prophet in ancient Greek myth and theater who, by punishment of the gods, lived as a woman for 7 years. She walks in both worlds, both male and female, and through this wisdom is able to intuit the shape of things to come, Tiresias will appear in many Greek plays, often foretelling tragic endings, or as a follower of Dionysus, prefiguring Pantheus' own transgendered moment in the acquiescence to God. So yeah, the merging of both sides. Okay, just to break it down into like common contemporary neo-pagan parlance. The entire idea that there is such a thing as a masculine god and a feminine god, a lot of neo-pagans would say is a human construct, even within the framework of neo-paganism. What I mean by that is it's not like a lot of neo-pagans believe necessarily that Mars is a male material god out there in the universe. What a lot of neo-pagans believe is that Mars is a sort of framework that we people have created in order to understand an aspect of a greater divinity or set of greater divinities. So if we're putting things onto the Godhead in order to understand it, and because we can't comprehend it in its totality, we're creating a framework, a pantheon, a bunch of smaller Godheads, and then coming to understand those, and then collectively we come to understand and know the larger one. So this concept of merging the masculine and the feminine within the physical form, the personal form, via androgyny, via transgenderness. I don't think that would be how I would refer to it, but that's how they refer to it in this article. Via not really drawing the distinction between masculine and feminine in one's own presentation in the world, or if you are drawing the distinction, playing with the distinction for certain reasons to get certain effects. This whole thing is about how, okay, let's take something we heard in the trailer to Stardust, which I'm not sure is the title I like anyway, but let's just roll with it. Let's take something we heard in the trailer. We heard in that trailer the record exec said something to the character, the guy who was playing Bowie, said something like, or Bowie said something like, what's the difference in a rock star and someone pretending to be a rock star? That is a very magical thought, all right? And if the movie is about that, I'm on board. I want to see it. I want to watch the whole thing back to front 3 times in a row, because I think that is more what Bowie was questioning and attacking head on through his work. This whole article is getting into Bowie's fascination with alien Gnosticism gave way to a return of decadent magic of man who sold the world. I won't read this whole thing, but what's interesting about Bowie, among other things, is that he was doing what I am interested in starting to do. And it seems like every album or every few albums, he started to explore a different magical tradition via a different character form. Now, how much of that was conscious and how much of it was theatrical and just intuitive, and he was just moving through these character forms because it felt right, I think only he could answer. But I'm not sure it matters either way. I mean, I read this article, and I'll put it in there so you can all go read it. I won't read at you. But you can see as I'm just flipping through it, if you're familiar with magic at all, you're seeing a lot of terms pop out here like that. Yeah. If you are familiar with the Golden Dawn, you know what that is, and it maybe perhaps does not surprise you to see it pop up in while we're talking about Crowley and Blavatsky and the influence on Western esotericism, which did very much influence Bowie. So this is a book that I am desperate to read. I actually tried to get it today from a local bookstore, but they weren't selling it, so I'm going to have to get it on Amazon, unfortunately. And I'm just going to put this in the description so you guys can go read it, because I did get a few questions on Bowie's magical work. I'll show you this. It's just a final thing to tie up our Bowie conversation. If you look at Bowie's last video, which I'll just put on so we can just all re-familiarize ourselves, because it was a few years ago. Bowie Lazarus. One of his last videos, it may have been his last video. It was from his last record, for sure. From Black Star. This is the video. Lisa says very close to the concept I've worked through in many aspects this year in my practice, duality. And yes, and reconciliation of duality. Fascinating, right? Okay, I won't play too much of this. Whoops. Whoa. Super loud. I won't play too much of it. But you can see here, let me mute it. You can see here that he's playing with death imagery. He's buttoned on his eyes. He's in a hospital bed. That sort of soft pink tone on the blanket. The blouse that he's wearing here looks very hospital gowny. So we're playing with this imagery. But then later in the video, we have this recurring visual of this cabinet that keeps creaking open. And then someone kind of peering out. If you fast forward later in the video, he is the one that comes out of the cabinet. God. His face. Just his face. Just his face. And he is wearing this outfit. This stripe, black and white. Let's see if we can get a good shot of it. I think he goes back in. Yeah, he goes back into it at the end. This outfit. Now look at Bowie's Station to Station cover from when he was a young man. Oh, it's not Station to Station. I thought it was. Bowie. It's one of his album covers. Dang it! Should have looked this up earlier. Oh, there we go. Check that out. This image here from one of his early albums. And you can see that it's a direct callback, right? This outfit he's wearing here to that outfit he's wearing there. And you can see he's kind of in his thin white dukish phase here. He's got the orange hair. This, when he was donning this outfit, is the era of magic that we're talking about in this article. And him calling it back late in his life, I won't be too speculative here because I think it could be construed as somewhat insulting, and I don't mean it to be. And I would probably misinterpret a little bit of what he's trying to do. But what I will say is that when I look at this visual, knowing that he's tying back to this earlier magical tradition, I think that it's very hard to interpret that any other way than Bowie was making his own life's work cyclical. He knew he was dying when he made this. He knew the end was close, and he's trying to, I think, part of why he's wearing this outfit is he's tying the end of his career to the beginning of his career, which is to say then we can sort of derive that whatever his intentions were in the earlier parts of his career, they clearly, for him anyway, continued all the way through, or at the very least re-emerged toward the end of his life. And if you look at the Black Star video, the Lazarus video, any of the stuff from Black Star, you can see and feel and hear that. So I take that as a lot of hope. Or it's very hopeful to me because it's like he clearly was playing around in magical waters that he kept returning to over and over and over again. And it's perhaps even this incarnation of Bowie that we're seeing is another construct. And maybe this is his construct for dealing with death. Or maybe this is when he finally let it down. I don't think it is when he let it down. It seems like another construct to me. So I will include this long article in the description for you to go read, so you can check out what I'm talking about Bowie's early career and why what we saw in the Stardust trailer doesn't it ain't it. It's not nearly enough. And I'm going to check out this book, so maybe next week I will talk about this book if it gets here in time. Probably won't because it's Black Friday. But that is it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the live stream. This was a fun one, very, very packed. Please do reach out to me at any time with a Q&A for next week, with something you want to talk about next week. If you just want to drop me a line, I love hearing from you. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already on the YouTube or the Twitch or the Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching this from. Thanks so much for checking in. Have a great week. Lisa, cheers to everybody. Stay weird, witches. That's to Salem, that's to you. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.